I've just enjoyed learning new things and just being someone that my teammates can count on, not only on the ice but off the ice. So hopefully moving forward, I can still continue to have that role, but also be more of an impact player.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Founding Four podcast. I am your host, Erica Ayala. The voice you just heard at the top of the show was that of Rebecca Moose Morse. Rebecca joined me in a conversation in June to talk about re-signing with the Riveters, if she's a forward, if she's a defender, why over the summer she considered herself Switzerland, and much, much more. So without further ado, here is my full interview with Moose. First off, I got to ask you this question. I feel like I might have asked you this question before, but I honestly don't remember. So the first time I met you, I introduced myself. I go, hey, I'm Erica. I'm in the autograph line. And you're like, hey, I'm Moose. And I was like, oh, I don't remember that name on the roster, but that's cool. So how'd you get the nickname Moose?
I've never told you before.
No,
Wow.
that's what I'm saying. I was like, how do I not know this?
I think that is that it sounds like how I would introduce myself, in a hockey environment. But the nickname came actually when I was like 11 or 12 years old, and I had a girl on my team who had a terrible, terrible speech impediment,
Oh.
and she had trouble pronouncing her R's. So when she said Morse, it kind of sounded like moose. And then all my teammates just started calling me that, even coaches, managers, and it really just stuck. And then I decided I liked the animal also. So I went to prep school in Lake Placid, and there are a lot of moose there. However, for the longest time, I never saw a real one until my senior year, when there was one in by downtown Lake Placid, just outside of the little village, Main Street. And I saw one, and it was kind of like far up on a hill, so they weren't letting people close to it, and there were like cops around, but it was awesome, and I can say that I actually saw a real moose and was like 200 feet, maybe from it, 200 feet from it.
I like it. Spirit animal. That's when it was locked in for sure.
Exactly.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. Yeah, my sister Jessie that comes to the games, she used to have trouble with her R's too. So for the longest, I was Awaka.
Oh, that's cute though.
So good times. All right. So but Moose, we're talking because the announcement of you officially re-signing with the Riveters has come out. And usually you put out the press release comes out, maybe someone does a little write-up, but as you know, things are a little bit different in the hockey climate. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on what went into you re-signing. First, we'll go though to last season with the Riveters. As someone watching closely, I mean, I could tell that there was a lot going on with the franchise. So first off, after the season ended and you were kind of able to put everything into perspective, where were you sitting with everything as far as some of the things that the team and maybe even you individually had to really weather through last season?
Well, I think even from the beginning, and by beginning I mean once the season ended, my goal every year, and like in the off season, has always been, I want to keep playing. I'm loving this so much. How can I stop? I'm able to balance it so well, and I can't see myself not being part of the Riveters.
Mm.
So with that in mind, obviously there were some bumps in the road throughout the season, and that's gonna happen. That's happened every season I've played, and every season the league has been in existence. So what you're getting yourself into when you're signing up for a startup league like the NWHL. And that's not to say that there aren't struggles and times where you feel like you know how could with what's going on, is do I want to keep playing? Can I keep balancing it with a full-time job? For those who are in that situation. And I think that I've always sort of said to myself, it's never gonna there's never going to be a point where I'm going to feel that way and confidently be able to really step away from the game and feel like that's what I want to do.
Mm.
So I really just treated it like any other off season that I've been through in the past, and but at the same time looking at really how the league responded in the off season in addressing some of the issues that my teammates and I had with the way things went. So I think that right off the bat, the the league sent out surveys requesting feedback, so that was a very positive sign. And I think I definitely took a lot more time than I have in the past in my responses, with details and really just giving the league a full picture of our my experience, and also speaking on behalf of the teams. I feel like a lot of us sort of came together and had a lot of similar frustrations, or really areas where we saw that the league could improve. So I really took time to fill out that survey, and when the announcement was made of how our contracts would be changing, specifically payment, and that was not our only concern. Salaries weren't our only concern, but that to see that the salary caps were increasing, and the revenue share model, that was definitely a good sign early on that we were pushing towards that, and then the league ended up giving us that essentially. So I always stayed interested and really just tried to take in all the information I could, and talk with a bunch of different people to try and figure out what I wanted to do, and make an educated decision.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to stay there for a little bit because I spoke to Fitzy maybe a few weeks ago, and she didn't allude explicitly to the survey as you did, but I've also spoken to other people, and I know there was feedback that people were giving. But one of the things that Katie mentioned that I thought was interesting, and has been one of the things that presumably has been addressed by the league, it's actually a return to how they used to do things, is with a general manager. And I'll just leave it open ended there. What do you make of that change, specifically given how last season went for the Riveters? And what are your thoughts on how that could, if it will, make things a little bit easier, perhaps for the team leadership?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually the first like big announcement that was made when Kate had contacted me and told me she was going to be our general manager next season. That was great news. I really like Kate. I think we've developed a close relationship. I'm coaching a clinic with her in July to August. So I was really excited about that, and I think there is a huge need for it. That was definitely something that I put in my survey responses, that a general manager is needed, just for that separation between management and coaching staff. I think that's really important. Obviously, all the professional leagues have that. Even um, even like, for example, lower levels, not even just professional, lower levels like junior boys, junior teams, and AHL teams, for example. So that's super important. Obviously, that model works, and there's a need for it. So I'm really glad that the league listened to the players. Again, that just shows you that they're willing to make it work with us, and not only have the fans and sponsors and all those external parties their interest in mind, but also the players. So that meant a lot, and to see that change happen so fast was a really good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of leads me to then that a lot of people have interpreted all that has happened in the off season. It's been a busy off season in a lot of different ways. I think we're also starting to see more recently the complexity truly of how people are just, as you said, kind of thinking about and measuring up what is available and what their wants and needs and truly what they're able to do as far as continuing to play hockey. And so some of that is, again, I talked to Katie, we talked about general managers, we talked about the Riveters, but she is someone who, as of right now, has committed to not signing with the NWHL. And so I'll use that as a segue to talk a little bit about For the Game. And as you said, you already mentioned that you did take some time to assess, but if you could just kind of let listeners and readers know what were some of those things for you in light of CWHL closing and a group of 200 plus people wanting better for professional hockey in women's professional hockey in North America. What made you comfortable and confident to return to the Riveters?
Well, obviously, when over 200 players are speaking up in support of that, it's going to catch people's attention. As a player, you have to do your due diligence and listen and take in all the information that you need to make, like I said, make an educated decision. So that's really what I did. I kind of was like Switzerland from, from the day that the social media posts first went out announcing the boycott the Players Association. So I'll admit it was a little bit hard not to post anything, but when you see all your friends and peers doing that, but at the same time, I think that I have so much loyalty to the Riveters and to the NWHL that it was hard for me to make a rash decision like that and put something out there that's so public without really taking the time to fully understand what you're doing in making that sort of declaration. So I held off on doing that and really just tried to learn more and talk to different people about it and really hear both sides. So that's what I did, and obviously it led me to this decision to sign with the Riveters. But it was a long process. Well, it felt a lot longer than it actually was, but um, obviously there's so many things happening all at once. You really just need to pay attention to everything and then see where where I struggled was my heart and my head.
Mm.
So, which, obviously that's any big decision you make that's going to come into question. Um, and as it moved along, I started to really fall in aligned with the league, just based on conversations with the Riveters staff, with other players, with people completely outside of the game who maybe are hockey fans but don't even play, or never played, and also, yes, the staff, fans, um, people not even involved with the league, and just not, it it kind of started as people coming to me, and obviously I'm not, in a position to really speak about it with certain people, but at the same time, I would sort of throw questions back at them or just give them the opportunity to speak about it and really just listen, because those people understood the position I was in and how, right after all this was happening, you couldn't really say much about it. And at the same time, I didn't really know enough to feel like I could say something. So based on those conversations, it didn't, at first it didn't help sway me really much. But as time went on, I I just realized that I wanted to be playing hockey next year. And that's really what led me to the decision. I want to compete for another championship, for another Isabel Cup, and I still want to be able to engage with the fans who have supported the Riveters for 5 years, and even if they're new fans. I love that part of being a professional hockey player, engaging with the fans, talking with youth players, and obviously that's the league's mission, and I'm definitely stand with that mission, and that's always been at the forefront, I think, It is important. So at a certain point, you need to realize that it's much bigger than just you or even your team or even the league. There's so many people invested in it. So you really need to take time and care with that decision, and that's what I did.
Yeah, I think that's more than at least outwardly what seems to be happening on social media. And you and I were talking a little bit offline before we started recording about how this is difficult for people who've been involved in hockey in one way or another, as a fan, as a media member, as a staff member of any one of these women's hockey leagues. So I guess what I'm trying to get a sense from you, Moose, and everyone honestly that I talk to is, you said you were Switzerland, so that means that there's one side and there's the other, and I think that's how again the conversations seem to lie there on you have to pick a side, and presumably people will say that you have picked a side. I'm curious. I'm trying to ask a question here, but is that how you see it? Do you see this as an either or? Are there conversations that either are happening somewhere in the in between, or that you wish were happening in the in between? Where does the state of women's hockey in that respect lie right now, do you think?
I think there are definitely a lot of people who are still in between, and just because they posted something on social media might not necessarily mean that that's still where they stand, or even how they felt with all of their heart and mind at that time when it was posted. So I think that a lot of people are sort of in the middle still, and I mean there's probably not enough conversation happening because people probably do feel like they need to choose sides. I think I did initially, and then I realized no, I don't have to. Like ultimately I either sign with the Riveters or continue with the play or be involved in the Players Association. So there is sort of a time where you have to make a choice. And as the season gets closer, that's definitely more at the forefront and approaching very quickly. Um, but I think that just by taking a stance one way or the other, that's not really the full story. So I think it is very important for those players to be heard, regardless of which side they're on or how they're feeling about it. If they're maybe in the middle, like I was previously, because again, everyone has the same goal. Everyone wants a sustainable league. Everyone wants to be role models for young girls and give them a product that give them and all fans a product that you know uh, uh, that is viable and the most elite it can be. I think where people just differ is on how to do that and how to get there the quickest way possible.
Yeah, so the phrase I've been using for several, almost months now is I guess we got to hold on to our asses and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but another piece of this conversation, and it's not new to professional hockey, is that for the foreseeable future, it looks like national team players are going to be elsewhere. And I think that there's another piece of the conversation that I think is more complex personally than the ink that it receives is the idea of the types of opportunities that the league is going to offer to some players who were playing in the CWHL, or players like yourself who I mean, I'm a big Moose fan. You can check the tweets on that one, but that you didn't always crack the roster and get on the bench. So I mean, do you think it's fair to have these conversations? Are these some of the things that you thought about going into this season in particular, knowing that it would be closer to what we saw in season 3 as far as roster spaces and opportunities? Where are you at with that?
Well, I have to be 100% honest. I obviously that was a huge consideration for me. It's not why I signed because, I've sort of been in that role for the past 3 seasons, and I was never in that type of role ever previously in my career, so it's been something new for me. But at the same time, I think my what's been really rewarding about it is just, teammates, even s- staff members, even members of the media, fans pulling me aside and saying, what you do for the team and the organization, the league doesn't go unnoticed. And even though you don't have the biggest role, um, like for example, my teammates have like called out just like my ability to push them in practice, or just being a leader, leading by example, and just doing the little things, even though I might not always have the most minutes every game. So I mean that feels good, and obviously you want to be that that top player that your teammates can rely on, and that's a role that I would like to fill this season. But at the same time, I I do value myself as a player and a teammate, and it's been nice that other people have recognized it. And those types of players in any league, on any team, they they are an important piece to the puzzle. So I've sort of learned how to fill that role and still get everything out of it, the experience that I possibly can, because it's hard sometimes, when you're putting in just as much time and effort, and doing everything you're supposed to do, um, when it might not always come in the form of ice time or playing in the big situations. But like I said, it's every team needs those type of players, and the fact that I've been able to play defense and forward, I've essentially learned a new position, which has been really fun for me. It was very challenging at first, but I was more of an offensive defenseman, so it kind of made sense. And in college, my coach played around with me at forward a little bit. It was short lived, but I've just enjoyed learning new things, and just being someone that my teammates can count on, not only on the ice but off the ice. So hopefully moving forward, I can still continue to have that role, but also be more of an impact player.
Ugh, brava. Brava. That was beautiful. I love it. Oh, it's a joy. It's such a joy to talk to all of you. But anyway, so I'm fangirling out here, but I'm gonna get it together. I'm gonna get it together. It's just I'm going through withdrawals here, but
So am I.
jeez, come on. So the other thing that I want to talk to you about is you know, uh, you have talked a few times about having an affinity to this franchise, particularly. I would imagine it's not a stretch here because it's in New Jersey and at least used to be affiliated with the New Jersey Devils. So now I'm not going to ask you to throw the Devils under the bus unless you absolutely want to, which you're totally,
I
that's up
wouldn't
to you.
dream of it.
I thought so. I thought so. But I guess my question pulling back from that is that we have seen that because of For the Game, that there has been a waiver in support of this particular um, league and this model for women's hockey. And I think early on that there was a lot of criticism and a lot of doubt if the NWHL would be able to survive some of the hits of Pagula giving the team back to the league, or again of the Devils ending prematurely their strategic alliance. Again, we already know that you've signed, but as a player, as someone who also, you've already mentioned that you want to progress the women's side of the game and be an inspiration to fans and stuff. When those types of things happen, what's the initial reaction? But now that that's all said and done, what are you hopeful for the sponsors and the supporters that have stuck it out with the league?
Yeah, so I I kind of expected that to happen, especially after Pagula announced that they were turning their ownership back over to the league. I figured that other partners, sponsors might follow. Um, however, when I received the news, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty hurt. It's hard not to take it personally, but obviously it's not me.
Right.
But well, with the love that I have for the Devils and the Riveters and just Jersey pride in general, it was just really sad to see. But since it's happened, I've definitely, even right initially, I understood it, and like I said, I expected it. But I think that it will open up other opportunities, and there'll be other partners wanting to work with us, and at the same time also Devils fans who have become Riveters fans. I don't think that that's going to impact their support for the Riveters. I mean, as far as attracting new fans within um, the Devils fan group currently, I think that's still attainable too. Who may not have been to a Riveters game yet. At least the partnership did exist. Most Devils fans I've talked to know who the Riveters are, and actually before I even say that I play for the Riveters, people have brought it up to me, which I find pretty cool. And I don't necessarily have to go out promoting the Riveters. They already know our name, and some of them have even said I've been meaning to get out to a game. So I don't think that that the ramifications are going to be that bad, from at least from like a support perspective of Devils fans and everything that in our partnership we've sort of worked to build. But at the same time, for me, just being a Devils fan, it's 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 a little upsetting. But obviously, I still am a Devils diehard. I always will be. That's never changing. Completely understand their decision. Obviously, there are always other factors and things that go on behind the scenes that nobody knows, or only the people in those conversations know. Um, so you can't really just react and feel a certain way. You sort of have to say, okay, well, what else happened? What else could have led to this decision? But again, I think it will open up the opportunity for other organizations affiliated with hockey, or even in other industries or categories too. Just because it fills a hole, and there's an opportunity for others to get involved. And I think that given the success of the league, and just what was accomplished during our partnership with the Devils, um, I think other organizations will recognize the value in a partnership, and really just promoting promoting the sport, growing the sport, but also benefiting mutually.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll get you out of here on this one. Talk a little bit more about you and your game and what you're hoping for this next season. I mean, is it too early, Moose, for you to be making and setting out goals? How are you preparing and getting ready for season 5?
Yeah. So at this point, it's probably unknown. It is unknown whether I'll be playing defense or forward. I think that will kind of um, surface as we continue to fill out the roster. But at this point, I think, and less so than in prior seasons, I don't really care. I'm willing to play whatever. Like I said, I've really embraced that role of being a versatile player, um, and playing defense when needed, or forward when needed. And now I joke around with my family and friends that I don't even know what position I like better at this point. I mean, I'll always be a defenseman. Deep down, I think, just because I've spent most of my career playing defense. But that's not to say that I haven't enjoyed playing forward, and I think that it's also helped my game in a lot of ways, as far as speed and quickness, and always just thinking move your feet first. So I think it's created a lot of good habits in me. So if I do at some point start playing more defense, that I'll use those skills that I've sort of sharpened while playing forward to my advantage on defense, and maybe be more offensive from the defensive position. As far as preparation, my my goal is really, like I said, to be an impact player and be in the lineup for every single game. Um, each season there's been games where I haven't dressed, and my goal is really just to play in every game. And I think that with that with that consistency and being in those game like situations on a more regular basis, that I'll be able to sort of get into a little bit more of a rhythm, and that will come through in my performance on the ice. And knowing that going into the season, um, thinking that maybe national team players, as well as some others, might not be in the league, there's obviously opportunity there for a player like me to step up and fill a more significant role. So that's what I intend to do, and that's definitely reflected in the way that I'm training, and moving forward, because at this point I'm feeling like it's really my chance to become the player that I know I can be in the NWHL. And there's no better time than now.
Amen to that. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And, if I haven't told you enough, I mean, happy to know you, kid. Just so excited and so thankful to be able to watch what you all do and get to learn the game. I truly learned hockey through watching the Riveters, so it's been fun.
Yeah, and we love you too. We love it every time when you're at the rink, or even just through the hallways, saying hello. It always puts a smile on my face, and that's another reason why that I wanted to keep playing in the league. It's because of the people. Everyone in the media is great. All the staff. They really make you feel like you're important, and what you're doing matters. So I've developed a lot of relationships, and I want to continue to grow those relationships with all those different people. So I'm excited for another season.
All right, cool. Well, all right, Moose, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for taking some time out to chat. I truly enjoyed this conversation. I mean, I don't think we've ever properly sat down and had a conversation interview style. So this was great.
No, we haven't. It's always been casual.
I know.
And this was pretty casual too. So
I try to keep
it.
Yeah, I try to keep it, But I got to challenge you a little bit. A little bit. I'm a little more off the cuff when I'm just talking to you, like you said in at practice. But I gotta poke and prod. I gotta keep everyone honest. All right, so we know what's really happening. Oh man! All right. Well, enjoy the summer, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you. You too. Nice talking to you. Have a good summer.
What a great interview that was with Moose. So glad she agreed to come on to the Founding Four podcast. We're really excited that we are now an independently run podcast, which means I have to give a shout out and a thank you to those OGs, the original patrons that joined me over on Sports Talk with ELA. The Founding Four podcast will be the main flagship podcast of a new women's sports podcast network I am building out. So don't worry, there There will definitely be NWHL coverage by way of the Founding Four podcast, but I also want to make sure that we are covering the PWHPA women's basketball. We're getting ready to finish up WNBA season, but of course the NCAA women's basketball season is coming up, and we've got some exciting things that we're looking forward to in respect to that. And then of course there's women's soccer. We're wrapping up the NWSL season, but as those from the Patreon community know, I try to give you insights from a lot of different athletes and different women in and around sports. So that will continue. Thank you for those who've joined us on Patreon. If you're not already, check out Sports Talk with ELA. And as always, you can find me over at the Founding Four Podcast Twitter. That's at Founding 4 Pod, at Founding 4 Pod. Say that 5 times fast. At Founding 4 Pod over on Twitter. You can follow me personally at elindsay08. That's ELINDSAY08 on Twitter. The same on Instagram. Also have a YouTube where for those who, if you want to listen to the Founding Four podcast on YouTube, I have a playlist. So all of that I'll make sure are in the show notes. But for now, I want to thank Moose for coming on to the Founding Four podcast. You can check Moose out as the Riveters open up the 2019-2020 season against the Boston Pride. That's Saturday, October 5th. At Pro Skate. That's the new home ice for the Riveters. So make sure you check that out. Also, we'll have that in the show notes, and you can follow us on Twitter for more information as the season comes up. It's almost time. It's almost time, everyone. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you are liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. One of the comments that we have going around now is, what should be Anya Packer's new nickname? She's got a new last name. She needs a new nickname. So make sure you head over to @Founding4Pod to weigh in on that. Until next time, this is Erica Ayala, and bye-bye.